Hello. Hello, everybody. So today I wanted to talk about one of my favorite topics, but in a way it's not my favorite topic. I'll tell you why, and maybe you can understand it as I talk about it. So I call myself a Buddhist, but I was not born into Buddhism. I found my way to it on my own after 60, 70, whatever years it took to get here. My parents were not Buddhists, and I didn't know anybody that was when I grew up. So my take on Buddhism is that since I just came to it, I only think about it in terms of it being a new thing, and I focus on the beginning of the whole idea that came about. So in the beginning, as we know, the Buddha left his wife, his child, and riches to go into the world and help people keep from suffering. And he, of course, suffered a lot trying to figure out the answer to that. And like many things, the most complex things are actually some of the most simple. And so what I say about that is, when the Buddha talks about meditating, what is he talking about? Same thing as prayer, only maybe we'd rather use the word meditating, but it's just thinking. I think we have to remember when the Buddha was alive, people were rather simple-minded people, and I guess one of the things that people need to do is learn how to think. So that would be what I would say is meditating is just thinking about things that need to be thought about, which everything is temporary, so each time you do it, it should be different. It should reflect something current in your life that you're meditating about. You want to find an answer. That's what meditation, I think, is finding an answer. So, of course, then we have the thing about where people want to know about enlightenment. Enlightenment. Now, we have to remember, when the Buddha was doing his thing, people had really small ideas, and you have to start very small. And so, enlightenment to me, and I think it was probably pretty clear back then, it is knowing the difference between right and wrong. So if you meditate and you can figure out right and wrong every time, because every day is different, every minute, every instance is basically different. And so to determine or think about what is right or wrong is going to be a full-time job. So I think that would be the main thing that the Buddha would emphasize, because if you can't do those two things, you can't do anything else. You're going to be a failure. You will have suffering in your life unless you're absolutely perfect and born into a perfect world. You're not going to be able to do it. And we know today this is not a perfect world. And I want to talk about that a little later, but when we talk about the Buddha, I think first of all, what do we see? What do we see? We see statues of the Buddha in different poses, with the hand up, like that. The many poses that come up with the statuary that has gone down through the ages about the Buddha. Well, they didn't have video cameras, and they didn't have cameras. So back then, the only way to really communicate something would be to create a pose in a statue of the person you want to give you the message. And we see the Buddha in many statues and many points of view, trying with statues to do that. Today, we don't need statues. We can move on from that. But I want to talk about one of the statues, and I should have an example of it, but I don't. It shows a picture of the Buddha sitting, but you also see like dragons called the Naga around the face and the statue of the Buddha. Some people think that those are protection for the Buddha, and I don't believe that at all. What I believe that is, those represent the hardships of life to come and understand the Buddha. You have to get through these demons, if you want to call them that. They look like dragons. It could be magical snakes. It could be anything to symbolize that. So to get to the Buddha, what are you going to have to do? Sort through the nonsense in your head so that you can reach. And they're, as I said before, simple. It's meditation and it's enlightenment, which is knowing right and wrong. You do those two things, you're going to be a success in your life. That'll keep you busy, because that's how life is. So I like to say that because people get bogged down in the statuary and not realizing the big picture is, if the Buddha came back today, he wouldn't just sit somewhere holding a pose and you're supposed to figure it out from that. I don't think so. If he came today, he'd be really pissed. He'd be very angry. I understand that. And so for me, I would have a problem. But since he cannot be here, whether I like it or not, he got into my heart and made me want to be the best person I can. By being the best person I can, I should know right and wrong, and I think critical thinking is also a part of this. Right and wrong is so important to know, and if you are enlightened, you will know the difference between right and wrong every time. That's what it's all supposed to be. So if he came today and he cannot, he said goodbye and he said, carry on after me. This is what I'm doing, because somebody has to speak for him because he's not here to do it now. And would he be pissed? I think he would. Say, you guys, what happened to the world? Now we have extinction looming, and if people go extinct, there is no circle of life, or some people would call it being reborn, reincarnated, and perhaps another animal or another human. If we're gone, there's no place to reincarnate to. I think that flies in the face of what the Buddha would want, because the circle of life basically is the same thing as enlightenment. So this is my thoughts on these things. I like to keep it simple, because I think it is simple, and if people want to move on to, but what about the moon and the sky and the stars? You're just distracting from the simple tasks, which are using critical thinking to know what is right and wrong, and thereby be enlightened, and by that have a better life without so much suffering. We have a world today, good luck with that, because there's going to be some suffering, because we've been sitting back waiting for things to happen, and that is not the way to go. So I hope somebody gets some benefit from this, because I didn't choose to be like this, and it's really a burden on me to carry this thinking I have to do for the Buddha, because he's not here, and because nobody else seems to say what I say, I have to say it. So there we go. That's what I do, and that's what I'm doing. I hope to talk about it more, but this is basically what I think of it. And if you go down this road that I've gone, you should be all right. Thank you, and bye-bye.